Vice President Fatima, Vice President Wu, friends and colleagues from the Asian Development Bank, President Choi from Korea Energy Agency, Excellencies, fellow ministers from different countries, distinguished colleagues and friends. First, my sympathies and thought go to those impacted by the earthquake yesterday. I also would like to thank President Kanda for his invitation extended to me in my delegation for this event. I thank the Asian Development Bank and the co-sponsors for hosting us in Manila. 2 years ago, I stood on this podium and said that we need to make sure that our energy systems can evolve in a considered, timely, and ordered way. Today, in 2026, in the middle of an energy security crisis, I would say the same thing again, with a little less comfort around the word ordered. Order is still what good policy must try to deliver, because energy systems are built over years. Investors need confidence that the direction will hold. But crisis does not wait for the perfect sequence of planning. And fuel prices can move through an economy much faster than any one of us can revise a master plan. We see this very clearly in Cambodia. When fuel and related commodity prices rise, the effect is not confined to the energy sector alone. A third of our workforce is still in agriculture and depends almost entirely on imported fertilizer. Our textile and garment industry relies on petrochemical-based inputs. Tourism is around 1/10 of our GDP. When fuel volatility hits, all three transmitted into the real economy very quickly, and the cumulative effect on growth is material. So energy security is a macroeconomic question, a competitiveness question, and it's also a household question. The heightened geopolitical risks, unresolved trade tensions, and the policy shifts of the past year are exactly the kind of environment in which small, open economies need options. Keeping the discipline of ordered change is something our government stands by. We also look to building the systems with enough option to operate through disasters. In this environment, energy security comes down to diversification, predictability, and partnership. Diversification is partly about sources of supply. More than 60% of Cambodia's electricity already comes from clean and renewable sources. And we are working towards 70% by 2030. We'll stay the course by continuing to build the supply, storage, transmission, and regional links needed to make energy reliable and affordable as demand grows. But diversification also means diversifying suppliers, technologies, financing sources, and regional interconnections. When one of these is squeezed, and several have been squeezed in the last year, the others must carry. That is why Cambodia is investing in flexibility as well as capacity. In April, Cambodia broke ground on the Upper Tatai Pump Storage Hydro Station, 1 gigawatt of dispatchable carbon-free flexibility scheduled online before 2030. Alongside it, a grid-connected utility-scale battery storage system is being developed with support from ADB's Energy Transition Sector Development Program. The wider program is expected to lift variable renewable electricity generation by around 30% and reduce annual electricity demand by 9% by 2029 through energy efficiency measures. Then there is predictability. Energy systems are built over decades, and investors need a framework that they can rely on for 15 years and longer. Southeast Asia has the resources, the manufacturing capacity, the talent, and the demand. What capital is looking for is the part governments must deliver. Frameworks that are clear, bankable, and applied consistently over time. Cambodia has worked to make that framework clearer. Our Power Development Master Plan 2022-2040 and the National Energy Efficiency Policy 22-2030 sit underneath every project. We have simplified permitting, aligned grid development with long-term energy planning, and standardized power contracts. The reforms with ADB will move into its third phase in 2027, expanding the energy efficiency regulatory framework and reducing technical standards for renewable energy, buildings, and industry. And looking further ahead, we are working with ADB to design the Sustainable Capital for Advanced Local Energy Initiative, or SCALE in short, so that Cambodia's own banks can also play a larger role in financing renewable energy. The aim is to move beyond reliance on foreign lenders alone by giving domestic banks the rules, tools, risk sharing, and long-term funding needed to finance clean energy projects at scale. There is an old line that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that brings me to partnership. Partnership underpins everything. No country in the world is an energy island. We are tied to each other through technology, prices, grids, and pipelines. And the work of building those ties is moving forward in the region. The ASEAN Power Grid, APG in short, with a fully integrated regional grid targeted for 2045, is the most important expression of this. And Cambodia is an active participant. Just last month, our national electric utility company, EDC, signed a joint study framework with the Lao Utility and the ASEAN Center for Energy to advance the Cambodia-Lao PDR interconnection with World Bank-backed preparation support. Reliable and affordable energy is the lifeblood of our economies. When supplies are interrupted, the price is paid first at the fuel pump and the food market, and only later in policy papers. Cambodia is highly exposed to oil price shocks, and recent disruptions have reminded us how quickly external energy risks can become domestic economic pressure. Here, I want to thank ADB, whose counter-cyclical support facility is giving us the fiscal space to absorb these shocks and protect households. Oil and gas are not the destination of the transition, but they still have a transition role to play. Japan's Powers Asia initiative, announced by Prime Minister Takeshi recently, is timely. It recognizes that emergency procurement, stockpiling, and storage should be treated as a regional resilience effort. Energy security must also be inclusive. Over 99% of our villages and more than 95% of our households now have access to grid electricity, including remote and flood-prone communes served by solar systems where the grid cannot reach. And the new Energy Efficiency Revolving Fund, created under our program with ADB, extends low-interest financing to small and medium-sized enterprises so that the move to cleaner, more efficient operations is not reserved for the largest firms alone. We are also working with ADB on something more granular still, how to support our tuk-tuk drivers as fuel and LPG prices rise, looking at opportunities to accelerate the adoption of e-tuk-tuks in Cambodia. These are already on our streets, but remain out of reach for many of the drivers who would benefit from them most. If families in remote areas wait years for reliable power. If a small enterprise chooses diesel because clean finance is out of reach, or if a tuk-tuk driver cannot afford to leave behind the fuel pump that is squeezing his daily income, then we have a legitimacy problem on top of an investment problem, and public patience is finite. So the work continues, and it continues in partnership with ADB, with our neighbors, with the private capital we are bringing to the table, and with the citizens whose patience and trust the energy transition ultimately depends on. 2 years from now, I hope to stand back on this podium and report that the word ordered fits a little more comfortably again. But whether the world gives us orderly condition or not, Cambodia will keep building the systems that will give us options, resilience, and opportunities that reach our people. Thank you.